"Are you going to the school disco?" Tamara's excited voice asked her on the telephone. "No, I don't know," replied Rachel. "Oh, you've just got to come," said Tamara. "Craig's going to be there. Maybe he's got a friend he could bring too." "Don't go setting me up with anyone, please," begged Rachel. She knew how determined Tamara could be when she got an idea into her head, and she just didn't want to get stuck with a blind date. "I know, I've got just the thing," said Tamara. "What's that?" asked Rachel. "No, it's no good telling you over the phone. I'm coming straight over." Too late. She had an idea in her head. Tamara arrived half an hour later and gave a quick hi to Rachel's mum as she dragged Rachel down the hallway back to her room and shut the door. She had 2 or 3 teen magazines with her, and as she pulled Rachel over to the bed, she announced, "We can do a spell on you. We can make him more popular. Or you can pick a guy that you like and we can do a spell on him to make him ask you to the disco. Or we could—" "Wait a minute," said Rachel. "What, a magic spell?" "Yeah," said Tamara. "Look, it's in this magazine. There are all sorts of spells." "And you believe in that sort of crap?" Rachel asked. "Sure, look. Everyone is into it these days. It's fun. It's not like I'm going to start riding a broom or grow warts on my nose or anything. It's just the power of suggestion." Rachel laughed, but she felt uneasy. Sure enough, there in the magazine, just as Tamara had pointed out, there was a list of spells. Things to wear while making a spell, when and how to do them, what to say. All 3 different magazines had the same sort of feature on magic spells and incantations. They were just written or laid out differently. She couldn't believe that Tamara was so gullible, allowing herself to get sucked in the whole idea. However, from Rachel's growing observations, she seemed to be not the only one. Later that week, Rachel turned on the television to see if there's anything of interest to watch. There was some show on about a teenage witch with a talking cat. She changed the channel and came across a repeat show about a girl going to a special school to learn how to become a witch. Flicking to another channel, she saw an ad for a show screening later that night about a demon slayer. What was going on? She'd never been conscious of it before, but now it seemed like magic and references to the supernatural, the occult, were all around. Something that had once been obscure and only practiced by fringe dwellers or mysterious strangers had silently crept its way into everyday life. Even to the point of being trendy. It didn't feel right. People were becoming obsessed with predicting the future or performing superstitious rituals to guide their daily lives. The worst thing was, so many were doing it that it had become part of normality. For as long as she could remember, Rachel had felt she had an innate sense of right and wrong. It had placed a very old head on her young shoulders. She was sure that her visions had given her a gift of insight that not many other people possessed. This led her to having a clarity of understanding and objectiveness to a situation that others couldn't seem to tune into. To Rachel, it was as if there was a veil covering many situations that she was able to pull aside, so as if to see the truth that others couldn't. While walking to school one day, the billboards on the side of a passing bus caught her attention. At the rear end of one side was the face of a poor, starving African child. His large, solemn, dark eyes seemed to make up most of his face. His bones were almost sharp enough to puncture his skin. He was the epitome of hopelessness and human suffering. If standing face to face with this child, he would be overwhelmed by pity and feel driven to help him, feed him, clothe him, treat him like a human being. But there he was on the side of a bus. On the front end of the same side was a giant picture of a hamburger and fries. Immediately, the child became nothing more than an image, easily tuned out. It was becoming more and more obvious to Rachel that people these days only saw what they wanted to see. They allowed their selective blindness to disregard large portions of their surrounding world. She managed to talk Tamara out of making her do any spells for the upcoming disco. Whether Tamara did any on her own or not, that involved Rachel's name, she wasn't sure. At least she'd backed off. The 2 girls were going to get ready and go together. Tamara's mum would collect her later from the dance, or else it was a known fact that neither would sleep if she stayed over. No good on a school night, their mums had agreed. Rachel's mum dropped the 2 girls at the entrance of the school grounds. Heaps of people had arrived and were already inside the school's auditorium. You could hear the bump, bump, bump of the CDs playing inside. Rachel went to make her way in too, but Tamara called to her to wait. "I've got to find Craig. He said he'd meet me out here," she said. "Couldn't you organise to meet him in there?" said Rachel. "Yeah, but we wanted to go in together," she replied. "Oh, great," thought Rachel. It was cold. There was no sign of Craig or his friends anywhere yet. Suddenly there was a loud whistle off to one side of them. Craig's voice called out from the darkness. "Oh, here, tomorrow." They caught sight of him and his friends in the shadows against the far wall of the auditorium. Tamara giggled off to meet him, with Rachel following reluctantly. She could make out the shapes of at least 5 people against the wall. One of them was Craig, but Rachel didn't know the others. She could see the red glow of cigarettes in their mouths and could hear them shuffling and whispering. Craig kissed Tamara and said hi to Rachel. He then handed them a bottle and a paper bag. "Have a heart starter," he said. Tamara took a sip and, still spluttering, pushed the bottle into Rachel's hands. Rachel just stood there holding it uncomfortably. Tamara was lapping up Craig's attention and completely ignored her. As Rachel stood there in the cold, dark night air, she began to drift away in her head. The flashing red light on the ambulance caught the attention of moths. They fluttered around the strobing light, mesmerised by its brightness and caught in the spell of its never-ending dance. The police, fire and rescue crews were also on the scene. The noise of the creaking and ripping apart of the torn and twisted vehicle was almost deafening. "2 bodies in here," one fireman called out to the ambulance paramedics who were standing back waiting. "No hurry to get them back in." The first of the 2 bodies were carried up the hill to the waiting ambulance. It was almost unrecognisable, but just a faint hint of facial features would be enough for the family to identify. The girl's body was brought up next. Even though her body had been badly damaged by the wreck, her face and blonde hair were left virtually untouched. Tamara looked more or less as if she were asleep. "Craig Huskins is the name on the driver's licence," said the fireman to the police officer. "Might have to contact the school for the name of the girl, though." "Damn shame," said the policeman. "I still can't believe why a guy would go out for a drive when he's just been out all night to his graduation party." He shook his head, saying he must have known he'd had too much to drink. "Hey, you've got to share it, missy." The red strobe light was shut down, much to the dismay of the moths, as the ambulance returned slowly and silently to town. "Hey, I said give me the bottle." One of the smokers wrenched the bag-covered bottle from Rachel's hands. The scuffle caught Craig and Tamara's attention as they came over to see if everything was all right. There was Tamara, alive, beautiful in the half-light, talking to Rachel and checking if she was okay. Her and Craig were in high school. It would be another 3 years before they graduated. Rachel vomited. "Your friend can't hold a grog glass, Craig." Rachel turned and ran back to the lit area near the auditorium doorway. She hadn't even tasted the contents of the bottle. It was the vision of her dead friend that had made her sick. Her ability to see just where their blindness would lead them. She hoped and prayed with all her heart that night that just because she could see the future, it didn't mean that she created it or the outcome was inevitable.